my story about cervical cancer. Earlier this year, back in March, I went to my OBGYN. I had my annual well women's visit. So I went to my well women's exam, which included a Pap smear. So a Pap smear is a test that checks for cervical cancer. With a Pap smear, they insert a speculum, which this is a speculum, into your vagina to have access to your cervix, and they obtain cell samples from your cervix, and they usually send them off to the lab. I went to my appointment on March 29th. I want to say about a few days later, I get a call from my OBGYN. So the nurse calls me and she tells me that I had an abnormal Pap smear and they want me to come back for a procedure. So as soon as I got off the phone with the nurse, I immediately started crying. I immediately called my mom and I was like, hey mama, they just called me from the OBGYN's office saying that my Pap smear came back abnormal, and I'm a nurse, so I know when they see some abnormalities, there's a possibility that they might have saw precancerous or cancerous cells. I was just distraught after I got this news. I was very anxious to get this procedure done so that, you know, if I did have cervical cancer or something along those lines, or like cancerous or precancerous cells in my cervix, that, you know, we could go ahead and do something about them. After they saw that I had that abnormal Pap smear, I had to be scheduled for a colposcopy. Something that helped me deal with knowing the fact that I had an abnormal Pap smear was the fact that I had went to work maybe a few days later, and I was talking to my coworkers about it, and they were like, oh, I had to get that done when I was younger. Everything came back normal. You're going to be completely fine. I talked to one of the doctors who I'm close with at my job about it, and she was just explaining the procedure to me, and she really eased my mind. So, and then something that happened like maybe a couple weeks before then, I was talking to somebody and they were just telling me that they had went through this procedure before, and they were just telling me their story, and this was weeks before I had went to the OBGYN, and she was telling me her story, and then what do you know, a few weeks after she told me her story, I'm going through the same thing. So I immediately contacted this person and let her know, like, hey, I'm upset. I found out I had an abnormal Pap smear. I'm gonna have to get the same procedure that you got. Like, helped me very like upset, and she talked me through and put me at ease. So I had a ton of people in my corner. I had to schedule my colposcopy for April 18th. That's because usually they don't do a colposcopy when you're on your period, so I had to wait till my period passed, and I went on in and got my colposcopy April 18th. So when I got to my OBGYN office, I checked in. I was taken to another part of the OBGYN office. I sat and waited for the nurse to call me back. So I had a really sweet nurse. She stayed with me during the whole procedure. But once she took me back, I had to take a urine pregnancy test because they do not perform colposcopies if you are pregnant. So of course my pregnancy test came back negative, and then she took me to this big room, which I will insert a video right here. She explained the procedure to me, what I can expect after the procedure, when will I know my results. And she stayed with me during the whole procedure, even while the doctor was in there with me. She was holding my hand. My mom couldn't come to my procedure because she had to work. That nurse, she had such a calming spirit about her. So I was chill because she was chill. And she was just very patient. The nurse, she didn't know I was a nurse, which I prefer. When I'm getting healthcare services, unless I need to disclose I'm a nurse, I don't want them to know I'm a nurse, just because I want to be a patient in that moment. I don't want to have to be a nurse in that moment. I'm going to explain to y'all what a colposcopy is. So a colposcopy is an examination of the cervix and vagina by means of a binocular microscope. So they'll insert the speculum into your vagina to get access to the cervix. In my case, they saw abnormal cells on my cervix. They will also wash your cervix with a vinegar-like substance to make it easier to see the abnormal cells, and your doctor may perform a biopsy, which is where they take a piece of those abnormal cells and send them off to lab. So overall, the colposcopy procedure, it wasn't painful. It was just uncomfortable because it lasted longer than a usual pelvic exam with the speculum. So it probably lasted about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. So I was sore for about a day. The nurse gave me ibuprofen after the procedure, and I just really slept the whole day after my procedure. I did have discharge for up to a week, so I did have to wear a pad for about a week. My results came back in about a week after my procedure. So I'm looking at my phone because I wrote down everything. So my results from the colposcopy showed that I had a low-grade dysplasia, or CIN1, which means my cells were slightly abnormal. So with those results, my doctor decided that she felt like it would go away on its own, and I just needed to return back in March 2020 for a repeat Pap smear. So I'm sharing my story today, and I just want you ladies to know that you need to go get your Pap smear. If you are 21 or older and you have not gotten a Pap smear, stop this video right now. Check your insurance, go online and see what doctor in your area, OBGYN, women's health nurse practitioner, takes your insurance, and go ahead and schedule you a well women's exam with a Pap smear. If you do not have insurance, you can always go to Planned Parenthood and get a well women's exam with a Pap smear, and they also have abilities to do colposcopies at Planned Parenthood as well. 21 or older and you haven't had a Pap smear, go schedule your Pap smear right now. Cervical cancer is not anything to play with, and even if you have insurance, most insurances will pay for you to have a well women's exam once a year. I hope me sharing my story has encouraged somebody to go get their Pap smear, or maybe you're looking at this video and you're about to go through getting a colposcopy. I'm just here to let you know that everything will be okay. If you have any questions down below for me, please leave comments. If you've had an abnormal Pap smear and had to get a colposcopy, or even further treatment past the colposcopy, please leave your comments down below. Don't be afraid to share your story, because your story can help somebody else get through this. And always contact your healthcare provider if you have any signs or symptoms. Get your Pap smears, ladies. Please get them.